Education, and this morning I'm kind of excited about this, uh, and also a little overwhelmed because I'm going to share some of Steffany Barton in her book, Facing Darkness, Finding Light, and I'm also going to share some of my own observations and life experiences related to the topic.
Is that book still available?
I just imagine that it is.
I have a copy, Brenda, if you want to read it.
And
Okay.
and I would assume, it was published, so I don't know if it's at Unity Village, if it's available there.
Is it a Unity book?
No, it's not. It's a Findhorn Press book, but I'm sure you can get it online.
I would think so too.
Um,
I'm going to look it up here.
and I bought it directly from her the very last time that I saw her. And when she was in this room, I bought it in this room when she did her workshop. About a month before she.
Does that meet me on the other side?
Is it what?
Meet me on the other side?
No.
Okay.
It's Facing Darkness, Finding Light.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Life After Suicide.
$13 online.
Why don't you
Life After Suicide, Healing Comfort for Those Left Behind is the subtitle.
Won't you order me a copy of it?
Facing Darkness, Finding Light is the
I'll
main
give you
title.
mine.
Okay.
Yeah. I've already read it. So.
And it's an interesting book because I found out more about her that I didn't know because of some of the things that she shared in the book. A brave and amazing woman who I saw her 3 times in the sanctuary when she did the large group thing, and then we had the workshop in here, and then she's gone, at least in this 3-dimensional realm.
She passed away.
Yeah, she died.
About a year ago.
Yeah, it'll be about a year.
Did you ever see it?
So, hi, Jerry, and welcome those who are online as well. So this is about suicide, and it's a topic that often a lot of people don't like to talk about. It has a lot of kind of negative connotations that hopefully we can dispel some of those, at least to make it more open for conversation for people who have faced it in their lives. And there's an amazing amount of people who have faced it, at least with friends, family, just because the amount of suicide that occurs is pretty high. So we're going to start with a meditation. So just kind of exhale, let go. Be open. Listen. Be aware of patterns. Observe. Synchronicity. Wild. number. Colors. Sounds. And smell. Let go of repeating thoughts that you are familiar with, and allow the silence to whisper wisdom. Awareness. And our emotional guidance system to sense the greater knowing. With the gift of acceptance to what is. Experiencing and sharing compassion for ourselves, our loved ones, whoever enters our sphere. All right. Okay, so there's handouts right here for those of you who just walked in. So, for those of you who are here, anybody who's met Steffany, and we have a word or two to describe what Steffany. Come on, Jerry.
What?
No, Mike.
Oh,
Hi.
Jerry, wake up.
Yeah. Steffany was absolutely pure love. I've never seen anybody not get off of that track of just pure love. And I dealt with her a few times because we stayed at my Airbnb and we had communication back and forth that way. You know, she was a Facebook friend and then we talked. And I've just never seen anybody in that state of love like she was.
Consistency. Also, and I didn't know Steffany well. I just saw her those 4 times, and I've talked to her each time, but I never like had a reading or individual session with her at all. When she did the workshop, she taught us to kind of along the lines of the meditation to try to spend time regularly trying to tap into our senses in a quiet way to get access to our higher self, and in that juncture, having an option to possibly have access to folks on the other side, loved ones. And she was really she gave like a very basic primer of what it is that she does. She had, for some reason, she had just an amazing gift. Would be, I can't imagine just having the voices and trying to differentiate between the three-dimensional world and spirit world, and having a sense of responsibility about what to communicate, when to communicate, and how to communicate. Also, one of the reasons I am focused on this subject at this time is that September is Suicide Prevention and Suicide Awareness Month. And I wanted to share that there's a 988 number that can be called or text for either for talking to someone or online chat for anyone who's currently thinking about ending their life. And Steffany goes into this in the book, this whole thing about, well, is suicide preventable? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, it is. Yes, suicide is preventable. There is a program that is taught by the Missouri Department of Mental Health, QPR, which is question, persuade, and try to and propose to not for people where you can see signs and talk people out of it. So it is. I'm convinced that it is 100% preventable. And I took this course 3 times, and it has helped me with my mental illness too, also.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's an interesting change of point of view for someone who may have had suicidal thoughts when you then are trying to help someone who's had suicidal thoughts. It really creates a change of view. It can be very helpful and healing. Yes, I've taken the QPR course. I taught it in years past. And it's helpful. However, Steffany really has the viewpoint that it is preventable before a person acts on it. And that after the fact, obviously, it isn't. And I say obviously, but it's really hard for people to kind of wrap their mind around it if you are a loved one or maybe a service provider of someone who's, and Steffany uses the word committed suicide, but I was trained in the latter years to go more with using completed suicide, because the committed has legalistic connotations to it. Regardless, it really is. I think there's that the prevention is in the breaking through the stigma of never talking and making people afraid that if they are having thoughts, okay, show of hands, how many people have never had a suicidal thought in their entire life? I don't see any hands. Yeah, that's right. And that's the truth. The truth is that most people, not all, but most people, high percentages, 80%, have had at one time or another a thought of ending their life. And what would it be like if I ended my life? And considered it. They may not have had a plan, but it's rare to find someone who's never experienced frustration, fear, anger, helplessness, where that thought has never entered their mind. And yet, we don't want to talk about it. It's a conversation stopper. And less so now than years before, but it's still So I just have down these words: taboo, stigma, ignorance, shame, guilt, rage, suffering and silence, and alienation.
The reason why I took the QPR course and training is because I had a time in my life that I had self-harm issues. And in 2004, I acted on it and tried to self-mutilate my male genitalia. And I knew then that it was time to learn some new coping skills, how to deal with my issues. And my psychiatrist at the time suggested I take the QPR course and get involved with mental health support group.
Very good. Very good.
And I did that, and the last, I'd say 4 years, the thought it's completely gone.
Mhm.
So if you have these thoughts and you really want to do the work, you can overcome a lot of these issues, but you got to want to do the work. Do the work.
Absolutely, and that's in any kind of yeah. I agree. Thanks for sharing. So now these terms, the taboo, stigma, ignorance, shame, guilt, rage, suffering, and silence, and alienation, is something that a person might experience prior to taking their life or thinking about taking their life. But it's also a lot of the feelings and experiences that people have who are family members, friends, and caregivers of people who take their life. And our experiences and feelings that people experience that have to overcome those feelings to be able to move on with their life. So in Julie's story, in Steffany's story, she lost a dear friend named Julie. And she shares this in the book. And Steffany meets this new friend that becomes really close to her children and her as a babysitter. She was an emergency babysitter. Her regular babysitter, for some reason, couldn't be there for a few days. And so she got this Julie to come in. And Julie kind of dressed kind of gothy, black army boots, but just entranced the kids. She played with them. They really loved her, and kind of caught Steffany as well, and so she finds out that she had after they had met and become friends, that she had attempted suicide and been hospitalized. And so she tried to reach out to her and really struggled to get any kind of connect. And then so during this visit to her, she tried to open up some space for compassion and love. And while she was doing that, she heard a voice saying, "Stop. Don't try and fix me. Stop it." And she looked up and she didn't, and Julie's eyes were closed and she had a kind of small half smile on her face and in a state of relaxation. So she realized that it wasn't Julie's voice. And so she went back to what she was doing. And then the voice spoke to her again and said, "Stop it. Don't judge me. Stop this. You have to let me have my own choices." And she went back And she checked and saw no facial changes on Julie's face. And then one last time, she went back to doing this and heard the voice again, and it got more insistent. So she looked up and she goes, "Look, Julie, I am not going to judge you." And that kind of broke Julie out of the relaxation state that she was in. And she said, "Oh, I know you." And she realized that it was a different voice than Julie. And then a few weeks later, they were having a party at the house. Her oldest child, daughter, was having a party and had invited this Julie, but they never heard an RSVP from her. And she, at one point during the party, Steffany was bringing out a tray of goodies to share with people, and she saw Julie, an image of Julie, in the room that just very briefly, and then it just disappeared. And later that evening, she got a phone call letting her know that Julie had died and had committed suicide. And it was at that point that she realized that she had a gift, but she also got the message not to judge as whether it's right or wrong into the fact that a person makes that choice to end suffering. And it's also when she decided that, or found out that she had this gift, that she could sense something from the non-physical realm. And instead of being totally negative about this experience, she remembers and sensing Julie experiencing release. She said, "I felt an enormous eternal gain for Julie's spirit, a free, unencumbered, unbounded soul now dancing in the light." Julie had found her way home. And she dedicated this book to Julie, and not because of the tragic end, but because Julie showed her a new beginning. And it really catapulted her into her career as being a medium, because at the time she was practicing as an RN, hospital-based RN services. For me, it was around losing my dad. The early years of knowing my father were really very perfect. I don't remember really any negative memories in the first 8 or 9 years of my life. He was smart, funny, kind. My hero, if you will. And then he had started to experience a severe mental illness. And the dad I knew just wasn't there anymore. And it's really difficult to explain, but it's just, and sometimes he had a lot of different symptoms that I experienced during my childhood. I saw catatonia before, which is where there's just really nobody in it. I would go up and talk to him and just be staring at a wall and wouldn't interact. Other times be other more gregarious, grandiose kinds of symptoms. And I could go on and on, but I'm going to just hit a few points here. One of my memories that I had during the 10, 11, 12 age was I remember wishing him dead. And I remember going, feeling horribly guilty about wishing my own father dead. It was really difficult for me. Only in my adulthood did I figure out and come to terms with that. And in that general time span, I also became suicidal. And I had made the decision. I used to lay down on the embankment of where train tracks were, and where the Illinois Central ran, in the suburb of Chicago. And I would just listen and feel the vibrations as the trains go by, and just kind of awed by the power of it. And I then one day decided, life's pretty crappy here. I'm ready.
How old were you when all that was going on?
13. And I was on my way to the train tracks, which were about a block and a half from where I lived. And this tall, long-haired hippie guy from New Mexico who was visiting his parents and was walking with his German Shepherd, and he just came up and almost accosted me and just started talking, very effusive. He was very happy and he was very enthused, and he was telling me about what he was going to be doing. He was going to join a commune in New Mexico, and that there was all this love and peace and all just an overwhelming dose of positivity that he just showered on me. And I remember going, oh, it just stopped my momentum. Okay. And I go, well, I didn't feel like dying anymore. I didn't feel like ending my life, because I felt better for the first time in a long time. And I remember, even in my 13-year-old mind, going, well, if this could happen, anything could happen. And I never had a suicidal impulse since. I had some thoughts at different times, but not any intention.
That old hippie ever knew what he did for you.
I've always thought he was just an angel, that just, and I never saw him again.
It just shows you what a kind word can do.
So I had nowhere, I don't know where he came from, but he showed up that evening. And then when I was 23, I was doing child abuse investigation, hard job. And I was getting depressed. And I'm just where dark cloud was over my head. And it was a struggle to get up to go to work. And I really felt bad. And I had this nagging. Also in the interim, my older brother had also started having similar. When I was 16, he had his first episode of severe mental illness with psychotic feature. And anyway, so I had some kind of an impression that one of them was going to kill themselves, either my brother or my father. I didn't know. I just had this premonition that one of them was going to die. And so I reached out to both of them, and neither of them would cop to wanting to kill themselves at the time. And then and I went ahead and I went into, I was a part-time graduate student at the time, so I went ahead and went to the counseling center and started therapy. And about the fifth or sixth session, my counselor, I got the phone call that my father had hung himself. And I got it from my mother, and I was talking to her, and I told her, she was the first person I ever told about my thoughts about wishing him dead. And she said, well, when was that? And I told her, and she says, well, he was very suicidal at that time. And so that was, and that was the first time I thought, so maybe I was sensing something from him because we were pretty close. And then a little later on, we went out to Pennsylvania where my dad had been living, and to get some of his effects. Met his girlfriend, and she thought it was important to tell me that I was the reason that he died.
Oh,
And so,
she thinks.
well, and she was hurting. They met on a psych ward together, and they had, so I knew she had her own issues as well. And, I can even understand where she was coming from, what the thoughts that she had. And then a few years ago, I posted on Facebook, 95 years ago today, Richard Earl Braucher came into this world. He practiced internal medicine and suffered serious mental illness in the 60s. And the whole family suffered from stigma and ignorance. He left this earthly plane in 1979 from a completed suicide, unable to feel the love of family and friends, unable to see a way through. My brothers and I have always felt reverence about his values, honesty, compassion, and humor. Love him, Dad. And that's kind of where I sit with it today. I don't experience the guilt, shame, nor do I put that on him. He was a warrior to experience mental illness at a time when the treatments were very archaic. And he survived it. And I would say that about my older brother too. And my older brother's amazing. That's another story. So back to the book. And these are some of the things that Steffany talks about death. What happens after death? She says, first, and this is just all death in general, we're greeted by non-physical beings who support and love the person. This may include family that have already departed, guardian angels, pets, or even spirit guides. The greeting is warm and unconditional. All are met with a familiar face, a genuine invitation to take a place in spirit's abode. After that, the second piece is a life rhythm, a time to completely, instantly, and fully experience the effect we have on others, to feel at depth the impact we have had on our world. Not a final judgment, nor an after-death sentencing. This is a chance to witness ourselves and relive our life in action from the outside in. We make peace with the journey just completed because we are wide open, forgiven, and feel free to feel and receive deep, unconditional, soulful love. Now, that's part, well, okay, so then we go next. The third one is after the review comes a period of rest and slumber. And how much rest and slumber depends on the person and their needs. She says, what is asked for is given, what is sought out is received. Reminds me of Abraham Hicks. And fourth is the soul awakens. So the soul is received, reviews, rests, and then is revived again, the spirit. So that's what Steffany says occurs. Yes,
integrity.
Did she give any explanation of how she came to that conclusion
Yeah.
on what happens after we die?
At the time when she wrote the book, she said that she based that on over 3,000 conversations with people from the other side, from spirits on the other side, and their stories, and it was very consistent.
There's
Yes.
also a consistent pattern of NDEs, and whenever people die and then come back, is that this basically is what's happening, you know.
Did you say that again? I didn't. I didn't get that.
NDEs, near-death experiences, whenever
Oh,
people
yes,
die
yes.
in the hospital,
Yes.
they come back with this
The
same
life.
story.
Yes. Yes.
What do you mean they come back with the same story?
It's all basically.
For in a near-death experience, because
And I don't know.
they get a glimpse. They get a glimpse.
Oh,
and
so
then
they didn't actually croak totally.
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
I know the life review is something that's very common.
Yeah.
Right.
Like the idea of like you feel
Yeah,
things
well,
from other people.
There you go.
Like the idea that you feel things from other people's perspective about you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's something I've like when I like look into it. It's something that's really common in all cases is that you feel almost what your impact was on the world.
Correct. Now, here's the issue with suicide is that all souls, she says, all souls arrive in the same haven. Yet those who commit suicide frequently decline the opportunity to do the review and reflect. So it's not a has to, it's an opportunity to review and reflect. And often, not all the time, and sometimes partially, but often the people who have, and she tells a story of being on, working a particularly difficult day in the hospital where she was just wiped out, and it was very unpleasant. She had drug-addled, mentally ill one specific patient who just got her goat and was really saying mean, cruel things to her. And she was if you knew Steffany, she was a very sensitive person. And she went home and she had a roommate at the time. She didn't even undress. She just plopped down on the bed and fell asleep. And she says, that's what folks who complete suicide or commit suicide tend to do when they pass over. They just plop down and go straight to the rest after they've been greeted by kind souls. And they just crash. They go, I just need to rest. And so that's why they often are not, don't take up on that option. Yes.
I've also heard that many, depends even if somebody is doing very evil things, that they just are automatically just born right back into another body with an experience that is what they're going to have to live through in order to know who they are.
Mm-hmm. And she says that omission may lead to challenges in future incarnations. So, and this is going to lead to something else too, as part of people who are survivors of folks. It has, I found it fascinating. I'll give you that nugget here as we move through it. So then she shares the AAAs, and this is acceptance, acknowledgement, and action. These are important steps to take in order to get through, I think, any grief. And particularly, it's particularly poignant and difficult with the grief of a loved one who completes suicide. But I think any difficult grief could have So it's acceptance of reality, whether it's death, divorce, sudden loss, suicide. And here's the statement that just crystallized the whole thing for me. Efforts at renegotiating reality are not only fruitless, but anxiety provoking and in time may induce helplessness and depression. So when something happens that we really don't like, whether it's in the news or it's happening directly to us, to try to renegotiate reality, to try to, this isn't really happening, And sometimes things are so terrible that we do shut down or just to protect ourselves. But it comes with a cost. It comes with a price.
And that's before actually committing suicide.
This is a part of the recovery process, the acceptance. To accept a loss. This is from the survivor perspective. The person that died's already in embrace of love, unconditional love, total lack of judgment, and I don't know the workings, about incarnation and what time, space there is, or how long. And time, I think, in the spiritual realm, isn't really the same as our three dimensions. The second is acknowledgement of feelings. And this is really a critical piece. And you can also see how it fits in with that life review thing for the person who's dead. But for us, it's leaning into our feelings about the loss. And it's a bold statement of self-care and a proclamation of self-love. When we are willing to recognize how we feel, when we allow the rivers of tears to flow, the deluge of guilt, sadness, struggle, and separation to flood out, wash away the pain, and begin to live a life anew. So when if we're still trying to renegotiate and we're holding off the feeling, like I remember when I was young, for quite a few years, I had what I called rhinoceros skin, where I didn't feel. I didn't let myself express hurt feelings because I couldn't. I felt like I would just totally lose control and go totally bonkers. I was afraid to feel. But that comes with a cost. There's a price to that. And so having both the acceptance and then moving forward to go ahead and work it out and whatever. And we'll get into some ways that can be. And that puts us in a position then of action, which is the third. Action can be journaling, walking, looking at photos, volunteering, music, resting, cooking, creating. She says, in the moments of pain from physical absence, we must act with inspired presence. We can enliven the memory of those past by going outside, letting the sunbeams wrap us up. We can smile at a stranger, listen to a stranger, listen to children laughing, stroke the soft fur of a small kitten. We act gently, lovingly, and consistently to fill the void with spirit, ease, and love. We act. So that's the opportunity then to move into waking back up, being whole again. And obviously, for everyone has their own journey and their own steps. And it isn't necessarily a smooth, straight line or anything. But that's, she has one piece she called another step or another piece, which is called forgive to remember. or another, it's actually a chapter in there. And the quote that really struck me in this was, in the end, the true motive behind suicide is a desire for freedom from emotional, mental, and or physical disease. Okay? So it's a freedom from, an escape from suffering. When the pain is so great and the uncertainty so engulfing, when the shakiness and instability of the landscape within collapses from beneath, when perception is dark to blinding, suicide provides a change in vision and a perspective that is new. When suicide has happened, it is certain it was the best cure, and at that point, not preventable, since it already happened. Okay. So, and that's a message to survivors that if your attempts to reach out, connect, failed, it doesn't mean you were a failure. It means that person wasn't able to connect with you reaching out. And it's their choice. Both with the grief process as well, and getting in touch with our body and feelings, as well as with maybe softening us up to be able to experience maybe life from the other side and more spiritual connection. She shares the 4 elements of physical life: fire, water, air, and earth. Fire is a protector and illuminator, a place of gathering. Fire ignites, we release. Lighting candles with pictures or other artifacts and campfires can be powerful ceremony. And I think we've all experienced that, and that's something that she encourages. Water in our rituals can renew, cleanse, and wash pure the heart of desecrated grief. Water conducts energy quickly, serving as a medium to release pent-up, stagnant, and unhealthy emotions. Beach, pond, river, lake, ocean, even an intentionally drawn bath invites spiritual connection and release. Water reuse. Air represents communication, expression, inspiration, intellect, information received mentally through insight. The air element vivifies music, rhythm, and song. Air can be represented with feathers, wind chimes, music, or clouds. A breathing practice and any other vibrational practice fall into this category. Air inspires. The 4th is earth. Earth represents strength, trust, and growth. When a loved one dies by any cause, the earth receives and re-energizes the cells to new life, brand new. All living things are not just connected by DNA. We are physically built from their stuff. In truth, there is no separation. Physical effects like teddy bears, trinkets, clothing, etc. can serve as a tool for this type of connection. The sacred ritual of the seaside walk invited heaven to pour forth as earth. The merging of the earth at water's edge with the fiery sun setting in the cool mists of evening air provided a perfect place for the union of 2 souls, together for a time, connected endlessly through a divine love line. And I love this one because it pulls all 4 of the elements into one experience. So that's something I encourage folks to to go ahead and try. So I think that a lot of healing can occur spiritually, because when it is, particularly when it's so difficult to have, to talk about, to get people to share and not kind of run away when you start talking about suicide. But, and although it is important, I think, to have social support as much as possible. This is a handbook. This goes back to a long time ago. I got these from the Missouri Suicide Prevention Project years ago. And it's called a handbook for survivors of suicide. And it's just written specifically for, not for people who survived suicide attempts, but for loved ones who are survivors left behind from people who have died. And it goes into, that suicide is different, some of the whys, the guilt, the anger, blame, the acceptance. And it has a lot of some of the same key points. And then that's where this suicide survivors bill came from, the last page of this little handbook called the SOS. And it's just, I have the right to not feel responsible for a suicide death. I have the right to be free of guilt, to have my questions answered honestly by authorities and family members, the right to peace and dignity, the right to maintain a sense of hopefulness, the right to positive feelings about one I lost through suicide, regardless of events, prior to or at the time of the untimely death, the right to retain my individuality and not be judged because of the suicide and death, and the right to seek help through counseling, support groups, to enable me to explore my feelings honestly to further the acceptance process. I have the right to reach acceptance, and I have a right to a new beginning. I have a right to be. This was in the memory of Paul Trider. It was copyrighted in 1984 by Joanne.
I just wanted to, I had a couple thoughts here about what you're saying. They did, I guess I'll call it a study. People who jump off the Golden Gate Bridge,
Yes.
not all of them die. And so, however they hit the water, whatever, they survived, although they might be, broken bones. But the vast majority of those who did not die said as soon as they jumped, they realized that they made a mistake and wished that they wouldn't have done that. And then I also had just the thought of, there was a baseball player he played for the St. Louis Cardinals, and he tried to commit suicide by shooting himself in the head. It didn't kill him, but it took out one of his eyes, and then he later became a spokesperson for suicide prevention. And so not everybody that tries to commit suicide actually really wishes that they would have. I think that, I don't know, whatever they go into, it's like that after the fact thing. It's like, oh, life is great, or not. I shouldn't say life is great. Life is precious. Maybe I should say that. Or at least that's.
I would imagine there's been a disappointment right at the beginning.
Well, I would. Yeah.
And another NDE that I read about, a woman that committed suicide, and she got to the other side, and they told her she had a choice. She could stay, but that she was going to have to relive everything that she had lived to reach the point of suicide again, or she could go back now and live her life and be done with it, okay? And so she chose to come back, even though she had problems. But she lived a much fuller life in her own heart, just simply because she had seen what was on the other side.
And to the Golden Gate study,
Oh, you have, okay,
no, yes, and I wanted to make a comment on that too,
okay.
because especially since I've read this, but it seems like, well, maybe the universe had something to do with them surviving.
Yeah.
And that's, and that was vibrational in related to them going, oh crap, I don't want to die, and then they didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know, because but that thought just kind of entered my mind. The other thing is that I wanted to mention too, that I thought was really important before we're ending, is that a couple of the people did choose to have some review, and one of them that did not, they had a family member that was very concerned about the fact that they, what that karmic kind of, what that was going to set up for them in terms of a future incarnation. And he shared with her, he says, well, you're right. I skipped the review. And he says, and it was the survivor's idea. Said, well, I would like to help with this. I would like to feed you some information to help you with this review. And he said, well, please do. He says, because that might really be important. And so to enter in some kind of prayer, intention of lesson learning, review information, whether that comes from a spirit guide on the other side, or, I don't know how this stuff works at all. But I do believe that when we send out energy intention, that it has an effect. And so I have decided myself in my case, to go ahead and share that intention with my dad, to hope that he gets something out of the review process and gets a glimpse and gets some information or has assistance on the other side to that end.
Something I've realized that helps me anytime I get into like a low state is I just go reread like the Sermon on the Mount, or I go read like one of the parables or something. If I go and reread those, like that helps me a lot with like just feeling less alone. And like my favorite one is "I'll come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, for I will give you rest." Like I don't know, it just does. It does exactly what he says it would do.
Yeah, there's a lot of power in that whole section of the Bible, and the Lord's Prayer on.
Yeah.
Okay, announcements. There will be a brief family support committee meeting in the youth wing right after the service today. If you have a heart for supporting families and nurturing our youth, we'd love to have your input and participation. Come share in the stillness this evening and every Sunday evening at 6 p.m. during our group meditation. Doesn't matter if you're new to meditation or have been practicing for years, everyone is welcome. The next Prosperity and Growth Team meeting is tomorrow, September 15th at 6 p.m. Everyone is invited to attend. This team has created a special project fundraiser to help pay for the HVAC repairs. For more information to donate to this cause, please visit the table just outside the sanctuary doors. We are delighted. Oh, so Jerry Steffany is our speaker next Sunday. And next week in New Thought and World Religion, Adult Education, I will be returning, and we're going to do, it's personal and interpersonal vibrational alignment through intentional breathing. And basically, it's going to be a breathing workshop. So we're going to do some practice. So come ready to intentionally breed in some certain ways, which may not be the norm. From November through March, when overnight temperatures are below freezing, our church opens as a crisis cold weather shelter. During September and October, we do an 8 items in 8 weeks donation drive to collect the most used shelter items. These are lists of items in the connection table in the foyer. The item for this week is oatmeal packets, or I don't know. Okay. And we've already had coffee and cocoa. So if you're considering volunteering in our shelter this season, we have a volunteer meeting on September 25th at 6 p.m. and on October 4th at 10 a.m. Choose the date that works best for you and come and see what it's all about. Our fall fashion boutique is September 26th and 27th. Come shop and refresh your wardrobe for the season. We're now accepting donations of gently used women's fall clothing. All items should be clean, in good condition, and ready for someone else to love. Oh, that's over. This must be last week's. Our Youth of Unity are hosting a pancake breakfast on the 28th, September 28th at 9 a.m. And then later that day, all those go for cost of winter rally, for money that's raised by pancake breakfast. And then later that day on Sunday the 28th, right after service, we're gathering at Phelps Grove Park for a community potluck picnic. Bring a dish to share and enjoy food, fellowship, and fun together in the park. Good weather. Our October 1st, we will take our annual trip to the Unity Village. Please sign up on the connection table in the foyer if you plan to go. We will arrive at the village by 10 a.m. and our tour will conclude by 1 p.m. After that, you'll be free to roam the grounds. It's always a wonderful time, and we hope you can join us. Save the dates and more info will be coming soon. Reverend Diana Kennedy will be facilitating her Get Ready to Thrive workshop on October 18th, and we'll have a new member orientation on October 19th and the ceremony on October 26th. Please see the office if you'd like an application. And that's for folks who have been regularly attending for 6 months or more and who would like to become members. And that is it.
Thank God.